If you can make that experience a little bit better, for somebody, they'll enjoy that and they'll remember that. When I was at Coney, I had a situation. It was really the kind of a telling point that kind of got me thinking in these terms many, many years ago. It was late at night and we were really pushing to get an item out the door, trying to identify it for a particular customer. And it was probably a 15-minute call. Finally figured it out. We were able to determine, yes, we can get it out. Something. And the customer on the other end, she says, they're your lifesavers. But more than anything, she goes, I've never had so much fun placing a purchase order.
Wow.
Now, in a weird way, that was more valuable than the transaction of the sale. Because it was like, okay, here's somebody that at the end of her day was stressing, trying to get things done because she had to go answer to somebody. Right. And, to be able to accomplish that and to also give a positive experience, that was kind of the beginning of this thing for me.
Hello, and welcome to Elevator Tools and Tech, a special series from the Elevator Careers podcast, where we spotlight the latest innovations, tools, suppliers, and technology driving the vertical transportation industry. In each episode, we sit down with the creators, engineers, and solution providers who are helping elevator companies work smarter, safer, and more efficiently. This episode is sponsored by Access Elevator and Escalator Supply, an elevator industry supplier of a wide range of components for elevator and escalator maintenance, repair, and modernization, and by her sister company, Quality Elevator Products, which specializes in the manufacturing and distribution of elevator and escalator parts and accessories. Together, they are more than just part suppliers, they are solutions providers. Now, let's dive in. Welcome to the show. Our guest today is Rick Milefchik, leader of both companies, a seasoned industry leader who's helping his teams navigate supply chain issues, building meaningful partnerships, and delivering real results. Rick, it's great to have you on today.
And it's awesome to be here. Great to see you again and talk with you again.
Likewise. No, I enjoy every conversation. It's been a few years since we first met, and I'm loving just watching your journey, watching you build these companies, and obviously navigating a lot, some challenges along the way. So I want to talk a little bit more about the growth, about the challenges, and the ways that you're taking those on.
Absolutely.
So one of the things we talked about in the past, you had mentioned the buying experience as a competitive differentiator. Can you walk us through how your team creates those wow moments for your customers?
Yeah, I think not just our group, so many companies have a process. An order comes in, you process the order, and you go through that, you pull it, pack it, ship it, it's done. And you go to the next order. And it is very transactional. And of course, that is what we do. And there's the nature of, necessity out of that. But I want the people in our organizations to look at what a customer does with us and what we do in turn with a customer in a way that they would with their personal lives. That each one of us has a buying practice, whether that be for groceries, whether that be for gas, services, whatever it may be, that drives us to our particular choice of where we go and what is it that does that. And I don't think many people think about that, but it is something that, are we price driven? Do we go because it's the cheapest? Or do we go there because our time is valuable? We can get in and get out. Is it that you walk in and they treat you like a king? Different people have different drivers that draw them to a particular place in their personal life. And I don't think people in the business world are a whole lot different. Certainly there's restraints based on corporate policy as to what somebody has to do or where they have to go. They may have to get multiple quotes. There's different dynamics, but for the most part, people still want, anytime you have that interaction, they have to go do something that's part of their job. They want that experience to be, number one, they want it to be easy. I don't care who you are. And nobody's going to say, well, I know I prefer the difficult way. No, they want the easy way. They want it to be easy and they want to be treated well. And they want to have an experience that is relatively positive. Nobody wants to have to spend money on a need. It's one thing to go spend money on something you want. But in our industry, people are buying these things because they need them.
True.
So they themselves as a buyer is a cost to their company. And now they have to go spend money, so everything is, theoretically is quickly, well, man, this is all negative right off the bat. And, so if you can make that experience a little bit better, for somebody, they'll enjoy that and they'll remember that. When I was at Coney, I had a situation. It was really one of the kind of a really telling point that kind of got me thinking in these terms many, many years ago was it was late at night and we were really pushing to get an item out the door, trying to identify it for a particular customer. And it was probably a 15-minute call, maybe. Finally figured it out. We were able to determine, yes, we can get it out, so on and so forth. And the customer on the other end, she goes, you're a lifesaver. So she goes, but more than anything, she goes, I've never had so much fun placing a purchase order.
Wow.
Now, in a weird way, that was more valuable than the transaction of the sale, because it was like, okay, here's somebody that at the end of her day was stressing, trying to get things done because she had to go answer to somebody. Right. And, to be able to accomplish that and to also give a positive experience, that was kind of the beginning of this thing for me. And that's what we want our people. And I don't think we succeed at it every day, every transaction of every day. I think we still have work to do. Sure. But that is one of the goals, that, to be responsive, to be quick on the draw, to be upfront, be honest, be transparent.
And if you can have fun and help your customer have fun at the same time, I mean, you've definitely provided a wow for them. Like, wow, I didn't expect that.
Yeah. And we do things in a simple way where we still send handwritten thank you notes. Nice. And again, that's very old school, of course. We still send mailings out. We do some of these things, 90+% of it may end up in a garbage can. I don't know, but the handful of them, for somebody to open up something and just say, hey, thanks for the opportunity to work with you. Handwritten, not a stamp, not a canned, pre-printed thing, but they get that. And even if they say, huh means they're thinking about something. It really, it threw them. But it threw them in a good way.
And that leading us to a next question, which is, you talked about growing and getting bigger, but also getting better. And I'm curious, I think you're kind of talking about some of that. What does it look like in practical business terms, and how do you measure getting better?
Yeah, we don't want to do everything. There's a lot more we could do. We could sell for a lot less. We could bring in a whole lot more. We could arguably be sloppier and do more at a faster pace. And I've used the term shortly after I took over here was, we're going to slow down to speed up, and we'll take a little bit of a hit. We were already in the middle of a mess anyway.
Clarify that just a little bit for me. When you say slow down, what I'm hearing is we want to make sure every order is correct. We want to make sure that we're not, sending you the wrong part to get it out the door fast.
Yeah, we were willy-nilly. Everything, got to do this. Oh, this came in. Let's stop this. Let's work on that. Phone rang. Better stop that. Let's work on this.
Sure.
We were moving sideways, but we weren't moving very forward. And that was just the culture that existed there. And, some of the practices and the processes that if they were in place, they weren't being followed. And many weren't in place. And so we've got to have structure, and we've got to adhere to that structure and follow a process. Doesn't mean we don't move within the process, but we still have to follow the process.
For sure.
And just to say that, we're bigger or we're getting bigger, look at what we're doing. Well, if we're not doing it right, then it's going to catch us. And, again, going back to the previous part of the discussion, the buying experience, if we're doing things right and giving people those positive experiences, that traffic back and forth will continue to increase. And so the bigger becomes rather organic, and it just takes place naturally.
Sure. Well, and it's healthier growth, right? You're building on a strong foundation versus just, building on a balloon or a cloud that's going to pop and,
it's healthy growth, and it's something that, that one you can be proud of, and that people really employees buy into that.
For sure.
because we don't have a slew of returns. We don't have a slew of complaints. And,
Good. Yeah.
these are the things that it's like, no, we're not having to stop to correct something. And that
Right.
goes back to, again, it's a play on words. It sounds fluffy, but it's sincere. Let's not fix something. Let's correct it.
Love it. Love it.
Big
So,
difference.
oh yeah. 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 I mean, you had mentioned that, in previous conversations that COVID really exposed some flaws in the kind of the just-in-time inventory model, and you had to kind of work around that and shift your own model
Oh yeah.
to,
hmm
what were some of the things you did to overcome that, if you will?
Well, I think the culture that existed was, um, we had a supplier for this, whatever this
Mm-hmm.
was. And we had a supplier for that, whatever that was. Well,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Suddenly they fell down, and the mindset was, well, they said, we'll get him here. They said, we'll get him here. Well, when here never came, well, what do? You got people, our customers who have customers, they really don't give a crap if my supplier can't deliver. They're
I
saying,
feel, yeah.
why is my elevator not running?
Yeah.
And so they're going to the service company saying, well, then find it somewhere else. And so, that's what we ultimately did, is like, well, then resource it. Oh man, it's going to be more money. Okay. So you're not making as much margin, but are you still providing the product, and are you making something? A
Sure.
little of something's better than a lot of nothing.
Well, especially
And
if you're pleasing your customers, right? To
that's
your
it.
point, they don't care where you got it; they just need it.
Well, and again, one of the advantages I think I've had over the years is working, coming from an OEM where I spent the bulk of my career. The processes there are pretty intense, and the expectations are very high.
Sure.
And when you rely on those customers for a good portion of your revenue, it doesn't take many instances to fail, and they just go somewhere else.
Right.
And so again, for you've got to survive somehow, and you got to figure out ways to get around where you're at. So yeah, resourcing was one thing, and then figuring out, okay, let's not get ourselves in this situation again. You put your hand on the stove, it's pretty hot. Don't do that. So
Right.
let's if we need it and we know we're going to use it, then buy it. Let's have it here.
Yeah. 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 So,
So from an accounting perspective, I'm probably not going to win most favored employee award in any accounting groups right now,
mhm.
because I love inventory, and I want to have it. And
Sure.
to me, it's a positive risk to have the inventory versus the negative risk to just live hand to mouth.
Right.
Because with the mindset, and not the mindset, just the general dynamics in the industry now, people don't have time to wait. They don't carry inventory. Their resources are less and they're fewer, so they're flying by the seat of their pants. And so if you've got it, you're halfway home. And for me, it was okay. We got hit way too many times on poor lead times, not having the material, the finished product, let alone the subcomponents of the finished product. No, I'm not going to do that again. So we'll beef up and buy what we got to buy to improve delivery time. So,
Yeah. I mean, what I hear is you are taking ownership, rather than pointing out to the ocean and say, oh, you know what, it's 6 weeks out on a boat in the Pacific. You're saying, you know what, we're gonna take ownership for this, and that's something you talked about in our last conversation. Extreme ownership is the
hmm
term you use
yeah,
as a core part of your company culture. And I'm curious how that mindset has changed the way not only you but your team handles mistakes or customer issues or just any problem that comes along.
yeah, we've invested heavily in our people. We send them to the company called Echelon Front,
Hmm.
which is headed up by a couple former Navy SEALs. Very kind of a military mindset, but not entirely, because it flows all the way down from whether it be military to business down to your home life. All of it can be affected by that and utilized. Essentially, what it is no, this is all on me. There's no
Right.
finger pointing. If maybe a customer did order something incorrectly, but you don't say, well, you ordered it incorrectly. That's one of the things with other suppliers over the years. It's customers got to jump through hoops to provide a a ton of information just to hope that they get a credit on something.
Sure.
And it's like, no, that's not really the right way. That just leaves a sour taste. And so we expect our people, it's not just from us to our customers. My people in our customer service groups, they are my customers. Our warehouse and shipping people and production people, they are the customers of the customer service group. Purchasing is a customer of mine. We're all customers internally of each other. And if we can't take care of each other, we're not going to take care of the external customers. And in order to really do that the right way, you and I may have a strong disagreement on something. Well, it's really hard. It's easy to say, well, I'm going to take ownership of it. Well, you got to really think about what you're saying, because that's not that easy to do.
When it comes down to it, right, it's so much easier to point your finger and say, well, you did this, right? Rather than to look inside and say, okay, what part of this do I own?
Right.
That's the part that takes you really looking at your ego and your pride and you're going, oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, it is. Yeah. And it's like, okay, Matt, I don't think I explained myself properly. Or I could have done a better job of explaining, these are the kind of things, because what that does is that also removes the victim mentality. And so it lowers the playing field. And, one of the big things that they talk about in the echelon front and the extreme ownership is detaching. Man, you're right in the middle of something, you get off with an angry phone call, somebody's mad at you, you have an employee conflict, whatever it could be, just take a step back and just say, wait a minute, let me think about this, take a breath. That's today's thing everybody wants to do, rapid fire response. Right. And in these type of situations, that's maybe not the best. And so that's really helped us develop a customer first mentality. That there is also truth. There's, the old cliche of customers always right. No, they're not. They're not always right. Right. But it doesn't mean that you condemn them for any kind of a mistake. It's like, okay, here's what happened. Here's what I see what happened. Right. Can we agree on X, whatever X is, and what it does, it just fosters a much more smooth and level of communications back and forth, and allows you to land at a good positive result a whole lot faster. For sure. And we don't spend time within our companies debating, frankly, stupid stuff sometimes. You deal with issues and you figure out, oh, hey, okay, let's collectively, we're going to do this. One of the things, we change so many things, and to a point where, people's heads are spinning.
I can't even imagine.
One of the things I continually had to tell people is, if you don't agree with what we're doing, that's okay. I understand that. And you have the right to come and tell me why and what would be better. And we'll put all that on the table. But the only thing I'm going to ask is that, give the process a chance to fail. Right. Let's follow the process. And if it fails, it fails. Then that's on me. If it took off like the rocket we hope it would, we all did really good then. So if something goes south, then that's on my head. But we'll never do something we can't reverse.
Well, and even if it goes south, maybe there's this part or that part, or something that needs to be tweaked. Well, great. Let's collaborate. Let's tweak what needs to be fixed, and let's improve it together. And that's really what I'm seeing. You're describing with extreme ownership, and what I'm hearing is, hey, we dumped a lot of things on the businesses, and yet our team was able to grow and work through it. In fact, you even told me a story about one of your teammates who said, this used to be nothing more than a paycheck, and now it's become a career. And I'm curious, how did you foster that across the organization?
I arguably one of the things I'm most proud of, actually, and this is one of our members at AES. When I got there, again, you alluded to the COVID thing. Access was a company at that time that was so reliant on soft starters, pretty much a very narrow scope, a one-legged table of a product line that we lived and breathed by. And in early 22, all the way into close to mid 23, there was a massive shortage in components for these soft starters, and they were like gold. And, so the revenue stream was pathetic, and to a point where we we were like, God, do we even continue to do this? And had just a couple young ladies at our office there that were working for us and relying very heavily on them, and both of them pretty inexperienced. And we reinvented ourselves basically with the help of, the quality products, the opening of another office in Las Vegas. And this young lady just grabbed a hold of everything. We brought her to one of these echelon front seminars with us. She took absolute 100% ownership of what went on in that office and had a strong interest and desire to learn. And part of it is she was new, but okay, you're clearly valuable. You've got a thought process. You've got talents here. Let's capitalize on these talents. What you don't know, let's kind of work on that to where you can get to a point where that also becomes a valuable asset. So we capitalize on the strengths, we disguise the weaknesses, collectively get better, and basically, here's the steering wheel, here's the keys, you drive this bus for me. And she soared. She's absolutely soared. And I get chills when I think about that conversation of hearing, I love my job.
That's awesome.
And she says, when I got here, this was just, I needed a paycheck. But she goes, this is just what I want to do. This is my career. And that is like, that's the handoff. That means, and that's one of the things I really do want everybody in our organization to be able to draw a line that when they come into the office, that's what they do. When they leave the office and they go home into to what I view the more important part of their life, whether that's a mom, a dad, a brother, sister, boyfriend, girlfriend, doesn't matter. And that's the more important part of their life, But if they dive in to the business part of their life and what they do, and they take ownership of it and they soar like what I just described, that improves the more important part of their life. It's not necessarily hand in glove, but it definitely has an impact. And that's what I want. I don't want people on a Sunday night dreading coming to work Monday morning. I want them, let's face it, none of us come to work because we got nothing else to do. Maybe somebody does. I don't know. But most people don't do that. They come there because they have to. So if you've got to spend over, half of your waking hours at a place, we should make it as positive as we can, and let people then take that positivity home with them and come back in the next morning with that same level of positivity, because that's going to transcend back to the customer, back to that experience we talked about. The domino effect is huge here. So
absolutely. That is what I'm seeing. You change the internal culture, which obviously changed people's personal lives and their families. And then obviously that's going to reflect back on how they're treating customers. And obviously with this idea of extreme ownership, you talked about, listening to the customer, hearing what they have, even when it hurts, right? Even when maybe they're unhappy and they're pointing the finger and they're, something didn't work out. So I'm curious, how has that feedback and that willingness to just listen helped you refine not only your products, your service model, and maybe some of your internal processes?
Yeah, we do on the AES side, and they touch both companies. We do periodic, simple little surveys. They're 4 or 5 question surveys, and the intent is that somebody can complete it in 30 seconds. We don't want to take 15 minutes for the survey. They're not going to do it. And we actually take that information and we really look at it and we do listen to it. One of the things we did, we put in an auto attendant several months ago, and I'm not sure it was the right thing to do. I'm not comfortable with it. So that was the subject of our last survey is, hey, how do you want it? When you call in, what's your preference? A live person, auto attendant, a direct line. Are you open to chat? Are you open to this? What don't you like? And, we've gotten some good feedback already. And it's amazing to see that some of what we thought several months ago that we were doing is turned out to maybe not be what people want. And so that's something we've already, in a limited number of responses, we've already started the process of figuring out, okay, what other options do we have? We do want the feedback. I do. And it goes back again to the loyal buyer, loyal customer, not even a buyer. Tell me where tell me where we are wrong. I don't worry about. I shouldn't say I don't worry about it. I worry less about the guy that's going to complain to me.
Right.
Because that's something that, okay, I'm hearing what I probably need to hear. Maybe not what I want to hear, but what I need to hear.
Right.
I worry more about how many other people think exactly the same way and just quietly tiptoe away and didn't say a word, but went somewhere else. That's the great unknown. And there's not too many things that scare me. That scares me, because if that happens, that's awfully hard to recoup.
Yeah. Because you don't know, right? They're the ones that aren't saying anything. They maybe just vanish, and it's like, okay.
No, but they're sure going to go complain to somebody else.
For sure.
So the word of mouth, it can work great for you, but it can really just destroy you.
Well, and especially in this industry, it's a tight knit, as we all know, right? Everybody knows everybody, talks to everybody. So I am curious, you had mentioned, C's as a customer, a supplier, a competitor, obviously said very, very positive things about them, but I'm just curious, how do you navigate those relationships while staying true to your values and growth strategy?
I think that's just the transparency of things, and it's just being very open. There's things that I believe, I think Rich down there at C's does. He runs a wonderful company. They are probably the most like us, if you will. They do some things that we don't do, and that's a business decision that, frankly, the investment we would have to make to go and do some of what we utilize them for, it would take way too long to recoup the investment. And so, I do feel like if there's somebody that does it better than us, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I'd rather just work with somebody, and if I can help them and they benefit, and then we in turn can benefit. Are we making money hand over foot with some of that? No, but we're, because of our geographical situation with the multiple offices, we've got things in locations that they're going to come in and get because they can. So it's beneficial to us. It helps them. There's things that we both do that we probably get some orders that they didn't. They get some orders that we didn't. There could be different reasons. It could be that experience that they give is maybe more positive to a customer than what maybe we did. Could be that they're right down the street, kind of hard to ignore. Could be that they priced it a lot better, or we priced it a lot better. Various dynamics. But you look at that and you say, okay. But I look at that and say, all right, we quoted this. Why did we get it? They went somewhere. Now, so somebody either found it faster. They found it. Did we not have it? Okay, that has a lot to do with it. Were we priced too high? If we had it and we were lower priced, okay, there's something else. That tells me what was it about that experience that they missed. I want to understand that. And there's a level of, I don't want to, and this is, again, I have to be respectful too, because I don't want to talk negatively about the career of salespeople, because obviously that's what I grew up with here in the industry. But I don't think the industry wants a stereotypical or traditional salesperson. I think the industry wants somebody that says, hey, here's the value I can bring you. But the deliverable has to be that value. It can't be because somebody says I deliver value. The customer determines that, not us. And I think, back to C's, I think that, again, two like companies, very similar. I think we do a lot of similar things. They do more than we do in some things. We do more than they do in others. We use them for those things. They use us for some things. And we play in the same sandbox and compete for the same customer base and others. And I think as long as we have that respect for the people in those companies and the company itself, all of that stays above the table. And it's like, you can almost have a lighthearted, dang it, you got that one. Okay, I'm going to get the next one, and that's okay. I think that, that's, if you don't win, you lose, and you got to get better. That's opportunity to get better is the way I look at it. The more we know, the better we get. Well, why did we lose that? Oh, I don't know. Okay, well, right now, then there's a gap in our process. We need to find that out.
To get better. And that's really the message I'm seeing overall from this conversation is that, hey, we're trying to get better and trying to provide a better product, a better availability, better customer service. And, it's a journey. We're learning as we go. And, that's, I think that's, it's not like it's a destination, right? It is a journey.
It
And so
is.
you just
It is.
keep going on the journey.
I'm on my 43rd year in this thing, and I learn things every day. I really do. And,
Yeah.
yes, I oversee both of these organizations. I've got a lot going on, but I still place purchase orders and I still process sales orders. I still talk to customers. I like to do that. I like to take orders and process orders.
Nice.
That keeps me, one, engaged at a customer and supplier level. It also gives me a sense of empathy as to what our people are dealing with and what they go through. I want to be able to know how everything that we do, what is the process? Is our system, is it really a smooth, fluid system, or is this really a crappy system? And, everybody's got an opinion, and they'll tell you if you ask them, but you also have to be willing to go and find out. And I like that. And by doing that and taking that approach, I'm constantly learning a ton of things, and not just about what we do and about products and people in the industry, but the way the industry is changing and shifting, and what people want, and what we thought they liked, maybe they didn't. What we thought they needed, man, maybe that's not necessarily as important. We're dealing with it on our website right now, where you're trying to push as much out there. Well, I've got a fantastic web developer that's talking about all this web language, SEO, and all this other stuff. It means crap to me, but he keeps telling me, hey, this is important. So I'm trusting that it's important, and he's showing me data that says, okay, yeah, I get it. So
must be right.
These are things, again, 30 years ago didn't matter, 20 years ago.
Well, and that leads me to kind of our last couple of questions here. And you hinted at this already. The elevator industry is evolving. There's shorter product life cycles, obsolete parts, fewer field resources. What would you say is the biggest challenge your customers face today, and how do you feel like you're stepping up to meet it?
You talk about the life cycle side of things. Years ago, a product, and I'll go back, when I started at Montgomery Elevator, an escalator was set to last 30, 40 years. And the products inside those escalators, it would be years upon years before they'd be replaced.
For sure.
So you had time, because of repetition and continuity, to learn things. And somebody could describe it. I know what that is. I've seen that 20, 30, 40, 50 times already. Well, now with the life cycle of these things being so short, and look at your phones, how, the obsolescence of phones, computers, we're dealing with a couple things on, making sure we get computers upgraded, because some aren't compatible with Windows 11 now, so
wow. Okay.
There's these changes in and out of our industry that happen so fast that people don't have the chance to really learn and have a continuity of familiarity with this stuff. Yeah. And so, if we're struggling with that on the supplier side, what is it like for a new generation of industry personnel coming in who, okay, you've got now, there's kind of the shift is kind of taking place in the industry, where you've got people that have been around for many, many years. They've seen all the old stuff. They've seen the new stuff come in. They don't like it, but they know how it works. But now you've got even a whole new collection, both at the field level. And I think a lot of the companies do a great job of training, but all right, are they going to go back and train on an old Mac operator that is being obsolete, that's been obsolete for years and parts are hardly available? Or are they going to tell the sales guy, go modernize, get it modernized? That's the quick answer for everybody. Well, you modernize it. Okay, fine, great. Now, but that one isn't available. We got to go to this model. So the life cycle, we use what we used to call the bathtub effect, and that's kind of, where it comes down and you've got this whole long space of continuity, and then it kind of swings up at the other end of the bathtub when things start to change, and then that cycle repeats itself. Well, that bathtub's getting a lot shorter now. And so it's people don't have the time and the opportunity to learn because of repetition. And then, as I mentioned, the new generation coming into the industry, they don't know what a lot of these, okay, you hear terms of Dover, Westinghouse, Mack, Montgomery, all of these companies that have been swallowed up by somebody else, but there's still a lot of product out there. Okay, who had Dover? Who had Montgomery? So right off the bat, you've got those questions. And, you got a buyer. Okay, where do I go for this? Where do I go for that? And so what we try to do is we're trying to make sure we put as many things out there in as many ways as we can. Yes, we're investing very heavily in our website, knowing that that is the way of the future. And many people, they don't want to talk to anybody. They just want to point and click their way. Okay, tell a mechanic that who just got off of a job and he's got greasy hands, but he's got a catalog sitting in his truck. He doesn't really give a crap about your website. He just wants to pick up that catalog. We've invested heavily in reprinting catalogs, and we still send out catalog mailings and flyers and leaflets. We want to put whatever information we have in our hands or at our disposal in as many differing hands and mindsets as we can. And, the more we can put, if we could put the same thing that's in a paper version, that's in an online version, at the hands of a company that may have somebody that's been there a month or been there 30 years, we've met them at both ends of the spectrum. And we try to, I've seen people where, well, what's the part number? If I can't help you if I don't have a part number. Well, wait a minute.
Right.
If they don't have a part number, let's help them find a part number, and, it seems silly, but that exists. And, I think that, by doing what we can do to provide a level of help and assistance is only, one, it's the right thing to do. It's a decent thing to do, but it's also good for business. So.
For sure. It sounds like you're obviously meeting customers where they're at. You're trying to help them get to that next step and improving as you go and learning from your lessons. And, nobody's doing it perfect, but it's, again, it's back to the journey, taking that extreme ownership and just moving to the next level. So Rick, thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights. For our listeners, if you're looking for a reliable partner in the elevator industry, check out Access Elevator Supply at aesupply.com. and Quality Elevator Products at qualityelev.com. Two companies that are leading by example. And until next time, keep raising the bar.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks again for listening to Elevator Tools and Tech from the Elevator Careers Podcast. And please remember to visit Access Elevator and Escalator Supply and Quality Elevator Products. You can find them at aesupply.com and qualityelev.com. Until next time, stay safe.